You pick up your phone to check one notification. 20 minutes later, you don't remember deciding to keep scrolling. You just did. Your work is still open in another tab. Your coffee is cold. Somewhere in the back of your mind, a small voice is asking what happened to your attention span. You blame yourself. You call it laziness, or weakness, or a lack of discipline. But the real answer is far stranger. Your brain isn't broken. It's doing exactly what it was built to do in a world it was never built for. 200,000 years ago, your ancestors' survival depended on one thing above almost everything else: noticing change. A rustle in the grass, a shift in the wind, a shape moving at the edge of the trees. The humans who paid attention to sudden novel signals lived. The ones who tuned it out did not. This wasn't a preference. It was carved into the architecture of the brain itself, in a region called the amygdala, wired to flag anything new, anything unexpected, anything that might matter. Your attention was never meant to be steady. It was meant to be alert. Here's where it gets strange. That same wiring built for spotting predators now fires every time your phone buzzes. Dr. Gloria Mark, a researcher at the University of California, Irvine, spent over a decade tracking how people's attention spans have changed. In the early 2000s, the average person could focus on one screen for about 2.5 minutes before switching. By the 2020s, that number had dropped to under 47 seconds. Nothing about your brain changed in that time. What changed was the number of rustling leaves, competing for it every single hour. Think about that for a second. Your attention system evolved in an environment with maybe a dozen meaningful interruptions a day. A predator, a storm, a stranger approaching camp. Today, you carry a device that can interrupt you hundreds of times before lunch. Every app on it was designed by teams of people whose entire job is to trigger that same ancient alert system. Not to inform you, to hijack the very reflex that once kept your ancestors alive. And it goes deeper than just noticing. It's also about wanting. In the 1950s, psychologist B.F. Skinner ran an experiment with pigeons and a lever. When the lever delivered food every single time, the pigeons pressed it occasionally, calmly, only when hungry. But when Skinner changed the reward to random, sometimes food, sometimes nothing, the pigeons became obsessed. They pressed the lever compulsively, over and over, chasing a reward they could never predict. This is called a variable reward schedule, and it turns out to be one of the most powerful behavioral triggers ever discovered in the history of psychology. Now think about your phone again. You don't know if the next scroll will bring something boring or something fascinating. You don't know if that message notification is nothing or something important. That unpredictability isn't an accident. It's the same mechanism from Skinner's lab, refined by decades of research and billions of dollars, built directly into the apps you open first thing in the morning. Slot machines use this exact principle. So does your inbox. But why does uncertainty feel so good in the first place? For that, you have to look inside the brain itself at a chemical called dopamine. For years, people assumed dopamine was simply the brain's pleasure chemical, the thing that rewards you after you get something good. But research led by neuroscientist Kent Berridge at the University of Michigan revealed something stranger. Dopamine isn't mainly about pleasure, it's about wanting. It spikes not when you receive a reward, but in the anticipation of one, especially when that reward is uncertain. Which means the moment right before you check your phone, when you don't yet know what's there, is often more chemically potent than the moment after you actually see it. You are not addicted to your phone. You are addicted to the uncertainty living inside it. This is the evolutionary mismatch sitting at the center of everything. Your brain runs 3 ancient systems built over millions of years for a slower, sparser world. A threat detection system built for rustling grass, now triggered by notification badges. A reward-seeking system built for unpredictable berry bushes and unpredictable prey, now triggered by unpredictable likes and messages. And a social monitoring system built for a tribe of maybe 150 people, now trying to process thousands of strangers' opinions on a single app. None of these systems were designed with malice. They were designed for survival. The problem is that survival used to require slowness, and now the world moves at the speed of a swipe. Consider what a normal day looked like for most of human history. Long stretches of repetitive, physical tasks. Walking, gathering, watching a fire, waiting. Within that slowness, your ancestors' minds had enormous room to wander, to plan, to daydream, and occasionally, to snap into sharp focus when something in the environment demanded it. Boredom wasn't a problem to be solved. It was the default background of existence, and the brain evolved to be comfortable inside it. Deep focus was reserved for rare, high-stakes moments, tracking an animal, crafting a tool, resolving a conflict within the group. Now compare that to a single modern morning. You wake up and reach for a screen before your feet touch the floor. In the time it takes to make coffee, you've already been offered dozens of high-stakes signals, an email marked urgent, a headline designed to provoke, a message that might be good news or bad. Your ancient alert system cannot tell the difference between a genuine emergency and a marketing email formatted to look like one. It simply reacts. Every reaction costs you a small amount of mental energy, and by mid-morning, you're depleted in a way your ancestors, sitting quietly by a fire, rarely were. And there's a twist most people never consider. This isn't just happening to you individually. It's happening to almost everyone, all at once, which means the entire culture around focus is shifting. Deep, uninterrupted concentration used to be the default state of a working mind. Now it's treated like a rare skill, something people pay for retreats, apps, and productivity courses to relearn. We didn't lose our ability to focus. We built a world that never lets that ability get used. Here's the part that should genuinely unsettle you. Every time you resist the urge to check your phone, and then give in anyway, you're not failing a willpower test. You're losing a fight your brain was never equipped to win against a system engineered by people who understand your neurology better than you do. This isn't a personal defect. It's an asymmetric battle between 400,000-year-old neural wiring and cutting-edge behavioral science funded by advertising revenue. On one side is a brain shaped by evolution to survive on a savanna. On the other is an industry with unlimited data on exactly which colors, sounds, and timings make that brain twitch. So what do you do with that? You stop treating distraction as a moral failure. Willpower was never the right tool for this problem, because willpower assumes the threat is external and occasional, like a predator you can spot and avoid. But this threat is internal and constant, wired directly into the same circuits that once kept you alive. Fighting it with sheer discipline is like trying to swim a current. The better strategy isn't to resist the pull. It's to remove yourself from the water. Researchers who study attention consistently point to the same finding. Environment beats willpower almost every time. People who put their phones in another room don't have more discipline than people who leave them on the desk. They've simply removed the rustling leaves from their environment altogether. This is also why the oldest tricks still work best. Physical distance from the device. Turning off non-essential notifications so the brain isn't ambushed by false alarms all day. Building long stretches of boredom back into your schedule, on purpose, so your mind can return to the slower rhythm it evolved for. None of this requires more willpower. It requires rebuilding an environment that doesn't constantly ask your ancient alert system to fire. Think about how strange this would look to your ancestors. Imagine trying to explain to someone standing beside a fire 10,000 years ago that in the future, people would carry a small glowing rectangle everywhere they went. That the rectangle would buzz dozens of times a day, and each buzz would make their heart rate tick up slightly, the same way a snapping twig once did. That people would feel anxious without it nearby, and calmer the moment they picked it up, even if nothing important was waiting for them. It would sound less like technology and more like a strange new predator, one that never sleeps and never stops testing whether you're paying attention. In a way, that's exactly what it is. Not a predator with teeth, but one that has learned to trigger the same circuitry teeth once did. And because it doesn't look dangerous, because it's small and familiar and sits quietly in your pocket, you never think to defend yourself against it the way you would against something with claws. The threat evolved. Your defenses didn't have time to catch up. This also explains why simply trying harder to focus so often backfires. The more you white-knuckle your attention onto a task, the more your brain interprets the surrounding silence as suspicious. Somewhere in your ancestral past, prolonged, undisturbed focus without checking your surroundings was occasionally fatal. A little restlessness, a little urge to glance up and scan the room, was once a survival advantage, not a distraction. You're not fighting a personal weakness when you feel that itch to check your phone mid-task. You're fighting millions of years of a brain that rewards vigilance over prolonged tunnel vision. There's something almost comforting in understanding this. You were never lazy. You were never weak-minded. You were running perfectly ancient software in an environment built specifically to exploit it. Your ancestors who noticed movement in the grass are the reason you exist today. The very same instinct, unchanged, is now the reason your attention scatters a dozen times an hour. It isn't a flaw in you, it's a mismatch between you and your world. And maybe that's the real lesson buried underneath all of this. The parts of you that feel broken in modern life are often the exact same parts that made survival possible for thousands of generations before you. Nothing is wrong with the hardware. The world around it changed faster than evolution ever could, and it's still changing faster every year. So tonight, when you pick up your phone to check one notification and you feel that small, magnetic pull to keep scrolling, remember what's actually happening. It isn't a lack of discipline. It's a 100,000-year-old survival instinct reacting exactly the way it was built to react to a world that learned exactly how to use it against you.